Beloit received quite an honorable recognition from the This Old House magazine for being one of the best historical neighborhoods in, I believe it's the state, or Midwest perhaps, I think it was last week. Can you tell us about that? And we'll give you a round of applause because it's richly deserved.
This is the third year that This Old House has made this award, and they choose one community from each state of the Union and one community from Canada, and it's their lead article on their March magazine issue. It's also reflected in their on their website. And this year we got the nod. We submitted an application last year. It went to a neighborhood in Milwaukee. This year we got the nod. It's important to know that Marge Fizel and Bob, who both contributed a lot of their own time and efforts to help make the application, as well as Sandy. Chuck, did you pitch in as well?
I support.
And Chuck was ever at the ready with his support. So it was not a single effort, but a team effort, and it had happened. Yeah.
Well, we saw it and heard it, and congratulations to you and your group, and a round of applause.
Well, thank you.
3C is a report on fundraising efforts for the new Beloit Public Library. Ms. Forbeck, you're going to fill us in on, I guess, good news.
Hi, Nancy Forbeck, and I live at 2715 Riverside Drive, and I'm here to again speak so highly of our community. We were tasked with raising $1.5 million for the library to help finish the job for this fabulous new really place of excellence that we have in our community. And I'm so happy to be able to report I was part of the ad hoc committee that was charged with raising these private funds. We did raise, and we met the goal of $1.5 million, and I just can't tell you enough how delighted we were with the positive response. That $1.5 million, 18.5% of that was raised by individuals who gave money. 12% of the $1.5 million was raised by businesses, and 69.5% was raised through our wonderful local foundations. So you can imagine how delighted we were to raise that. I do have to just tell a quick story. The first call, I think it was last March, I made to talk to a person about this fundraising. He was a CEO of a local business and said, "Oh, Nancy, this is a terrible time to be raising this money. I just don't think you're going to be able to do this." Well, if you can imagine, that was my very first conversation with anybody about this. It ended up that that particular business came through beautifully for us. But anyway, we did raise it. And compliments to our community. The other people on this ad hoc committee were Dave and Jane Trinan, Alyssa Whitney, and also Tom Nightingale and Jean Haas also contributed to this. And of course, the Library Foundation, the board itself, and the fabulous Friends of Beloit Library also came through in large ways. So I just wanted to make sure all of you knew a press report will be coming out this week, and we just think that whoever the new director is going to be, they're going to be extremely pleased and proud and to be able to work with a community like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forbeck, and also for your efforts and the efforts of your group. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good job. Item 3D is a proclamation marking the 98th anniversary of the Girl Scouts of America of the USA and declaring March 7 to 13 as Girl Scout Week in Beloit. Helping us with that will be, of course, Vice President Levy, and also the Girl Scouts Executive Officer Jeanette Bradley. Ms. Bradley, could you step forward, or have the girls step forward as well, perhaps?
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Before we start, it gives me great honor to recognize such a great organization, not because of all the work that they do for young ladies and helping them become nice, mature ladies, but also because they're my favorite organization because of the cookies that they sell.
Still have some available.
Okay. Just a little FYI, whoever hits me up first at the year, I usually order about 20 or 25 boxes at a time, so I still got about 10 boxes at the house, so just a future reference. So, City of Beloit, Wisconsin official proclamation, Girl Scout Week 2010. Whereas March 12, 2010 marks the 98th anniversary of Girl Scouts of the USA, founded by Juliette Gordon Low in 1912 in Savannah, Georgia. And whereas throughout its distinguished history, Girl Scouting has inspired millions of girls and women with courage, confidence, and character to make the world a better place. And whereas through the Girl Scout leadership experience, girls develop skills and learn lessons that will serve them throughout their lives so that they may contribute to their communities. And whereas Girl Scouting takes an active role in increasing girls' awareness of opportunities available in math, science, engineering, technology, sports, and other fields that can expand their horizons. And whereas more than 3 million current Girl Scout members nationwide will be celebrating 98 years of this great American tradition with more than 50 million women who are former Girl Scouts and living proof of the impact of this amazing movement. And whereas in the greater Beloit area, 40 Girl Scout troops representing more than 600 girls are mentored, supported, and impacted by more than 250 volunteers who impact the values of Girl Scouts. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that on the occasion of the 98th anniversary of Girl Scouts of the USA, the City Council of the City of Beloit does hereby designate the week of March 7th through the 13th, 2010, as Girl Scout Week in the City of Beloit, presented this first day of March 2010, James E. Vandenbogart, Council President. Thank you. Congratulations.
Good evening. To the members of council, I want to thank you on behalf of Girl Scouts of Wisconsin Badgerland Council. I have members of Troop 3101, who are here representing the Girl Scouts of Beloit. And if you're interested, call the office. We still have Girl Scout cookies available. But we are here celebrating 98 years of developing young ladies. We are building future leaders. Our mission is to build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. And these Girl Scouts are working on a community project to focus on reduce, reuse, and recycle as their community service project. So we want to thank you for recognizing us and giving these young ladies the opportunity to be Girl Scout representatives for this week for the City of Beloit. And thank you for this honor. And we also have with us Lori Tolme, who's our volunteer coordinator here for this particular group of Girl Scouts. Thank you so much for having us this evening.
All right, the next item on the agenda is, 3E, Focus on Energy Grant Presentation. Mr. Botts, I understand you're going to be assisted by some of the representatives from Alliant. So,
it's my pleasure this evening to recognize both Alliant Energies, Dave and you and Jennifer, like before, and Jennifer Everhart from Focus on Energy and Dave Ely from Alliant Energy. What Focus on Energy does, it provides funding to help communities when they're looking for not economic development, but that too, but ways to better use your energy resources. And we partnered with Focus on Energy before in other grant applications when we did some other types of work around the city. And so with this one, we installed a new generator for power source for the wastewater treatment plant, and part of the application was to put in variable speed drives with our blowers out there to reduce the energy use on those. This will really greatly reduce the amount of energy we use. And so we happened to apply for a grant from Focus on Energy, and we're successful with that. We appreciate those guys providing these programs. It's nice to get $45,000 to help offset some of the costs for the project. So I'd like to introduce Dave and Jennifer to tell us a little bit about their programs.
On behalf of Focus and Alliant Energy, I want to commend the City of Beloit for their use of these funds to reduce energy. It is our goal to have our customers use less of our product.
Right.
And it also, when the Girl Scouts are talking about reduce, the city is putting that to practice. And these funds are part of a program that Focus has and Alliant Energy has. Alliant Energy can provide funds if the customer does not have capital, and Focus, they will provide funds if they have capital to help reduce the cost of the project. So on behalf of Focus on Energy and Alliant Energy, thank you so much for using our programs, and especially, and probably one of the largest energy users that the City of Beloit has, which is the wastewater treatment plant. It'll save millions of kilowatt hours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you. 3F is also a public works type issue. Mr. Boths, can you please introduce PW Fox, please?
Approaching us now at the podium is coming. This is PW Fox, Public Works Fox. Mr. Fox will be our representative out in the community to demonstrate to youngsters all over about the types of programs we provide, and talking about recycling and reuse. Ladies, this is a person who will be coming to schools and talking to you about that. Well, he won't talk much, so he's kind of sad. But our intent as part of our missions with all the programs we provide is public education, and PW is going to help us get out to the public and provide education to our public, mostly through a lot of our youth in the community, but we'll also help adults understand the better responsibilities of being good recyclers and better uses of energy throughout your community, and help slow down traffic in construction zones. We don't need anybody to get run over. So this is PW Fox.
PW came about on our Public Education Committee last year. The DPW decided to join resources and energies for public education. So last year, all 5 departments from the Public Works created a Public Education Committee so that we could share those resources. Part of our pretreatment program from the EPA, our permit says that we have to do public education, and we felt that we were spending a lot of money and not getting much for our effort. So last year we came up with a brainstorm of having a mascot, because if you look at advertising dollars, it says that you get more for your money, and PW hopefully will last for many years, and like Dave said, get out to the public. I do want to thank all the DPW members, though, who volunteered to go through training to either be a mascot or a handler, because without them, obviously this doesn't work. And PW's been to 2 events already. He was at Special Olympics and also the chili cook-off. I gave Dave some pictures that he can share with you at those events. They were all very successful. So again, he's got 15 more events so far to go to, so he's going to be a busy little beaver come this summer. No, you're not a beaver, PW. You're still a fox. That's just an expression. So hopefully he'll get out in the community. We encourage all of the children, if you want them at your school or if you have a special event, contact Water Resources. Actually, he has his own booking agency already, so you have to call Water Resources and talk to Patty Miller. So we'll be more than happy to come out to the events that we can, and he will be the master of ceremonies for the DPW open house on May 20th. He'll be meeting the public down at the new transfer center. He will also be hosting the big monster truck pinata pull at 6 o'clock at Water Resources. So he's got quite a full agenda, so we hope that the public comes out and sees him. Oh, he wants you to know Fox is spelled with 2 X's.
Ms. Simplot, are we going to have like a competition with Fox and McGruff and Spark?
We've already been challenged to that, yes, we have. And we'll take on any challenge, it doesn't matter. So.
Snappy the Turtle has no chance.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right,
Let's ladies vote.
item number 4 is public hearings. This evening we have 2 public hearings. The first is a public hearing on a proposed ordinance amending the zoning district map for properties located at 227 St. Lawrence Avenue, 707, 711, 717, 723, 727, 739, 747, 751, 755 Parker Avenue, and 218 Roosevelt Street from R3 low-density multifamily residential district to R1B single-family residential district. Ms. Christensen will give us the staff report in just a moment. There is a request that we proceed and suspend the rules and act on the merits of it this evening, and there is a recommendation from the Plan Commission for approval 5-0. Ms. Christensen.
Our comprehensive plan was updated in 2008, and starting in 2010, all land use actions have to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So the Community Development Department brought forward this action for these properties that were located on St. Lawrence and Parker, because this section of Parker Avenue was noted in the comprehensive plan as single-family residential, and it is currently zoned R3, so we brought that change forward in order to make it consistent with the comprehensive plan. Included in your packet is a map which outlines the location of the properties on the east side of Parker Avenue. The properties on the west side were actually downzoned in 1999 as part of the comprehensive rezoning, and for whatever reason the east side was left and it kind of remained a peninsula of R3. Included in your packet is a list of all the properties, what their current land use is, and then it shows you which of those will become legal nonconforming. Essentially, those that are 2-family or multifamily, if this zoning is approved, will be legal nonconforming, which means that they can continue to be used as they are as long as they aren't vacant for 12 continuous months. They can just essentially continue to be used as 2 and multifamily. If they do become vacant for 12 continuous months, then they must be used as the single-family designation, which would be the zoning classification if it were approved tonight. We did notify all the property owners that were subject to this rezoning, as well as the required 150 feet around it, and we did install 1 sign at the end of the block to notify the neighborhood that the zoning action was ongoing. Plan Commission held a public hearing. No one was present for that public hearing, and they unanimously recommended approval of the zoning request.
All right, this is a public hearing which I will open on a proposed ordinance amending the zoning district map for properties located at 227 St. Lawrence, 707, 711, 717, 723, 727, 739, 744, 751, 755 Parker Avenue, and 218 Roosevelt from R3 low-density multifamily residential district to R1B single-family residential district. Does anyone wish to appear and speak on that ordinance amendment? Again, does anyone wish to appear and speak on a proposed ordinance amending the zoning district map for various properties located on St. Lawrence, Roosevelt, and Parker Avenues from R3 to R1B? And lastly, does anyone wish to appear and speak on an ordinance amendment for the zoning district map for properties located on St. Lawrence, Roosevelt, and various locations on Parker Avenue from R3 to R1B? I'll close the public hearing and entertain either questions or perhaps a motion on 4A. Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And Mr. Dench, any further questions or comments on the suspension of the rules concept? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well. Is there a motion on the merits of 4A? Ms. DeForest, Mr. Noonan, excuse me. I did have one question, Ms. Christensen. If I recall from the Plan Commission dialogue, the real crux of this only applies to 4 separate properties. Is that correct? Many of them are already single-family, but there's only 4 multifamilies that might be affected by this.
Yeah, there's 3 multifamily and a 2-family. So there's 4 total properties.
And we haven't heard again from any of these people?
Drew did talk to a couple of property owners, explained how the legal nonconformity would work, and they thanked him for the information, and so we didn't get any indication that they were for or against.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from Councilor? Ms. DeForest?
Just to clarify, the West Side neighborhood group, Neighbors Who Care, they're in favor of this.
They haven't responded to any of the notices, so I mean, they had been previously, one of their members sat on the Comprehensive Planning Committee, I think with Marty, and they had encouraged us to do that, and they had discussed with staff the idea of bringing this forward, but they didn't actually come to the Plan Commission meeting or call after the notices were sent out.
Thank you.
All right, any additional questions or comments? All right, there has been a motion and a second. I'll call the question. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well, motion carries 7-0. 4B is a public hearing on a resolution authorizing a conditional use permit to allow a multifamily residential use with 4 dwelling units in a C2 neighborhood commercial district for the property located at 1824 Prairie Avenue. Again, this is before the council this evening with a staff presentation by Ms. Christensen and a Plan Commission recommendation for approval 5-0. Ms. Christensen?
This is a 4-unit multifamily dwelling. It had been previously zoned R2, and one of the units been vacant for 12 months, and so the applicants applied for zoning to C2, which you did approve on January 19th. But in order to establish that multifamily use, they still need a conditional use permit, which they have applied for. They submitted the required site plan, and we have a few concerns with the site plan, but we would just rather administratively work with them to develop a good site plan. We believe there's land for the parking. There's enough land there to provide the required, I think it's 6 spaces, 1.5 spaces per unit. And Plan Commission did review this and was comfortable with having staff look at that administratively with the applicants, and did recommend approval of the conditional use permit with the following conditions, which is that the conditional use permit authorizes a multifamily residential use with 4 dwelling units in the existing building located at 1824 Prairie Avenue, that the applicants must submit a revised site plan meeting the dimensional requirements of the parking areas and drive aisle, including at least 6 off-street parking spaces by April 30th, 2010. The parking areas must be complete, including striping and signage, by November 1st. And if more than 25% of the existing parking area is removed and replaced, or the parking area is expanded by more than 25%, the applicant shall go through the formal site plan review and architectural review processes and obtain a certificate of zoning compliance and an architectural review certificate before the parking areas may be reconstructed. And then any major changes will come back through the Plan Commission and Council through this process by amending the conditional use permit, and staff may approve minor changes administratively. And Plan Commission did recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Ms. Christensen. I'll open the public hearing on a resolution authorizing a conditional use permit to allow multifamily residential use with 4 dwelling units in a C2 neighborhood commercial district for the property located at 1824 Prairie Avenue. Does anyone wish to address the council on that issue? If so, please step forward. Again, does anyone wish to address the council on a resolution authorizing a conditional use permit to allow a multifamily residential use with 4 dwelling units in a C2 neighborhood commercial district for the property located at 1824 Prairie Avenue? And lastly, does anyone wish to address the council on a resolution authorizing a conditional use permit to allow a multifamily residential use with 4 dwelling units in a C2 neighborhood commercial district for the property located at 1824 Prairie Avenue? I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion on 4B.
I would move to approve 4B.
Mr. Dench and Ms. Johns. All right, additional councilor questions or comments? Mr. Noonan?
Mrs. Christensen,
excuse me.
maybe you mentioned it, I missed it, but
lighting units or landscaping that's required for this?
No, there's not, because the parking lot is behind. Our landscape ordinance generally deals with, landscaping around it. They may do some landscaping as part of it, but usually it's buffering along the street, and because the parking will be behind, I don't believe there's a lot of additional landscaping that will be installed. They may be intending to do that as part of, since it's a recent purchase in the springtime, but and they are here if you want them to get up and answer that, but I don't believe it's required as part of the parking lot development because of its location. They will have to have green space around the parking area, but that currently exists.
All right, any additional questions or comments? All right, I'll go ahead and call a question. All in favor of 4B signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well, motion carries 7-0. Item number 5 on the agenda is citizens' participation. This evening we have one individual who's indicated by sign-up sheet that they wish to address the council. Ms. Rogers-Wadle, if you'd step forward. I believe also she's distributed a packet of information to many of us. I don't think...
Good evening. I am Jean Rogers-Wadle. My family and I own and operate Dewey Service located at 2212 Prairie Avenue, Beloit. We operate a service station which offers automotive repair, both light and heavy duty towing and recovery services. We have been in business since 1955 and have provided area law enforcement agencies, including the City of Beloit, towing and recovery services on a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week basis for the past 52 years. My father was an original member of Wisconsin Towing Association and a past chairman. Dewey Service is a member of the 500 Club, which is the 500 oldest companies in the nation. Towing and Recovery Association of America, Friends of Towing, Wisconsin Towing Association, and Professional Towers of Illinois. I currently serve on the board of the Towing Board of Directors for the state of Wisconsin and have worked with state legislators to enact the Move Over law. I'm here tonight to ask that you give thoughtful consideration to amending city ordinances that I feel put motoring public, our police and other responders in jeopardy regarding their safety, regarding timely response to traffic incidents. My father purchased his first tow trucks as a result of a fatal accident involving the owner of the only towing company in the South Beloit at that time. My family personally was affected when my husband and a co-worker were seriously injured on the side of the interstate. These two drivers had over 20 years of experience between them and could hook up a vehicle within 5 minutes of time. But on October 31st, 1988, that was too long. They were struck by a motorist who did not get over into the other lane. Both drivers sustained serious burns, injuries, and still carry emotional injuries to this day. This is why I have been so involved in the Move Over law and traffic incident management. The issues at hand for us are the City of Beloit ordinances that apparently prohibit my drivers from parking their vehicles in their driveways of their homes. This prohibition greatly extends the time required for us to respond to police requests for service, which is often an emergency nature. Typically, our on-call driver can respond to any traffic emergency within 20 minutes or less because his tow truck is readily accessible. There are 2 drivers on call every night. One driver lives on the west side of town, one driver lives on the east side of town. If our drivers are required to drive from their homes to another location in the city to access a towing vehicle, that response time will be substantially increased. For example, on Saturday, February 13th, 2010, we received a call from a customer concerning a vehicle broke down at Shopko Plaza. A few minutes later, received a call from Rock County Dispatch asking how much longer our response would be, because usually our response times were much faster. I had to explain to the dispatcher that we could no longer park our trucks at home, so there would be a time delay. In every additional minute, wrecked and disabled vehicles are not cleared from the scene of a traffic incident puts responders, accident victims, and other motorists at risk. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation Emergency Traffic Control and Scene Management Guidelines provide a primary goal of safe, quick clearance in order to restore traffic flow and reduce the chance of secondary crashes. I have included a copy of a published document from the United States Department of Transportation TIM program, highlighting a few statistics regarding incident management. For example, every minute of an incident delay multiply traffic queues by a factor of 4 and increases the risk for secondary crashes. The National Traffic Incident Management Coalition encourages traffic incident management partners at the state and local level to work together to develop multidisciplinary goals for response times and clearance times. It is our position that the current Beloit ordinances, as they are now being interpreted and are about to be enforced, are contrary to this effort and should be amended. There are also costs to the city that should be realized by this. The longer the response time will lead to more overtime costs by officers who have to wait at the scene for the scene to be cleared. The article in the Beloit Daily News on February 6, 2010 stated the concern about being over budget by $1 million because of overtime costs. We are requesting that tow trucks, as defined by state statute, that are authorized by the Police Department for traffic incident management be accepted from the following ordinances. And ordinances are 6.3, accessory uses of buildings and structures, 6.32, home occupations, number 1, vehicle and large equipment storage. We'd like it to be amended to accept tow trucks as defined in State Statute 340.167N, authorized by the Police Department for traffic incident management. Under Article 8, Development Standards, 8-100, off-street parking and loading. And number 8-101, applicability. And underneath that same topic, D, in residential district, motor vehicles not exceeding 1-ton capacity but not including tow trucks as defined. And in 8-108, use of required parking spaces, except as otherwise expressly provided in this chapter, required off-street parking facilities shall be used solely for parking of passenger automobiles or trucks of less than 1-ton capacity except for tow trucks as defined. Originally, it was suggested to park in front of the houses on the street. That was stopped by a traffic ordinance. One truck has found a safe commercial lot to park in. However, it takes the driver 8 minutes to get to. One truck has nothing nearby on the west side of town where it is safe to park. And when winter comes, these trucks are diesel. They do need to be plugged in somewhere. I have included in my packets my notes with highlighted amendments. These are the violations we received, but aren't necessarily applicable to our business. You will find petitions from the neighbors of the trucks in question, petitions from local emergency personnel and citizens, recommendation letters and copies of the published information from the federal and state departments of transportation regarding incident management. I am requesting a temporary forbearance of these ordinances while this is being researched and discussed. It is also our concern that the current ordinances are being selectively enforced. We sincerely hope that this is not the case. Is it the city's enforcement plan to cite all such vehicles not in compliance with the current ordinances? I would be pleased to answer any questions you might have regarding our towing operations and other matters related to this issue.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Rogers-Wadel. I don't know that we can respond at this point, but you have provided us some information, and we'll look into it and get back to you in some sort of organized fashion.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, the next item is the consent agenda this evening. The consent agenda consists of items 6A through D. The consent agenda, all items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda. First of all, do any councilors wish an item removed from the consent agenda? Very well. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Again, items 6A through D.
To approve.
Mr. Haynes and Ms. Johns. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 7 is ordinances. This evening we have a proposed ordinance to amend the General Code of Ordinances to the City of Beloit. Before the council for a first reading with a request to proceed to a second reading and action on the merits. As I understand it, Ms. Alexander, this is the quarterly update of our statutes to stay in compliance with state statutes. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? All right, Ms. Johns and Mr. Levy. Council, questions or comments? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very well, motion carries 7-0. Is there a motion on the merits of 7A? Ms. DeForest, Mr. Haynes. Again, councilor, questions or comments? No question. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well, motion carries 7-0. Item number 8 is appointments. There are none this evening. Item number 9 is counselor activities and upcoming events. I've forgotten whether I started from left or right, but I think Mr. Noonan, you're up this evening first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to congratulate all of the wonderful volunteers and folks that put together the fifth celebration of film in Beloit. It was a tremendous success, the fifth annual one. Brings so many people from all over the country and people internationally to our community. It's a great opportunity to showcase what a beautiful place Beloit is and a wonderful place it is to live. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Johns?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to let everyone know, in case you haven't heard, that Cinderella is coming to town this weekend. Beloit Memorial Theater is presenting Roger and Hammerstein's production of Cinderella. Showtimes are March 5th, 6th, and 12th at 7 p.m. and March 13th and 14th are both matinees at 2 p.m.
Mr. Haynes?
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I have a slight, small anecdotal information about the our award for the This Old House, best neighborhood in Wisconsin. And this was a time-consuming effort on the part of the Neighborhood Preservation Association, and they put it. I know that they put this in well back at the beginning of last year. I wasn't aware of it until Rick and Anna were over helping me put up my pergola, and we were up on a scaffolding, and Keith Gandolfini, the editor for This Old House, called, and while Rick was literally hanging with one hand over one of the beams of the pergola, was attempting to extol the virtues of our fair community.
He's a talented guy.
Yeah, exactly. So that showed a lot of commitment. I didn't even want to be on the scaffold with both of my hands on it, but he went ahead and extolled our virtues. So kudos to him, and it's a great honor. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Levy?
Just a quick one. I would like to welcome the Aldrich Student Council, probably, attending their meeting. They were here last year. A different group was here last year. I think it's exciting to see our young people getting involved in government at such an early age. Then they may not be real exciting meetings to you, but I guarantee you that as you grow older, you'll see what it's all about, and I just want to welcome you, and it's glad to have you here.
Mr. Dench?
Nothing.
Ms. DeForest?
I have tons. I'm making up for the last several meetings. I also want to welcome the Aldrich student counselors that are here, and thank you for your role in helping to govern your school. And it's wonderful that you've taken that responsibility seriously, and if you broaden your horizons by coming here to see what we're doing at this level. So it's wonderful to have you here. And I have to, too bad the Girl Scouts left, right? I know two of them now, so I'll have to catch them later. They recognize me as Isaac's mom, so, but I have a soft spot in my heart for Girl Scouts. I actually, when I came here as a student to go to Beloit College, my very first volunteer service work was as a Girl Scout troop leader. I had a troop at Merrill and a troop at Wright Elementary Schools because they're having difficulty finding troop leaders, and I had a wonderful experience with the girls in those troops. So, and we actually were the double Dutch jump rope champions that year, which is quite fantastic. They actually taught me how to double Dutch, which I know it's funny to imagine, but so I want to congratulate the Girl Scouts and the fine work that they do, and also would like to acknowledge our former Girl Scout CEO for the Badger Council, Angela Moore, who's recently retired. I have to, Beloiters come through every time, and it's so fantastic that we met and exceeded the library fundraising goal. I remember talking to the Forbecks about it, and they were extremely optimistic, and I share their optimism, and I'm so touched. It just almost chokes me up that during this very difficult economic time that people still managed to come through, and I mean, you heard that 18.5% of the donations were from individuals, and some of them just giving $5, $1, $10, whatever they could to make our library happen, and it's something to really be proud of. I also I was as ecstatic when I heard about our designation as a Best Old House Neighborhood in Wisconsin, and want to thank you all for the wonderful work that you do on neighborhood preservation. So thank you for your efforts. so many times the committees that we have in our cities, the committees and commissions, their work goes unnoticed. And I just want to let you know how much we appreciate you and what you've done for our city. So thank you. And again, I am so proud to be a Beloiter. It's such a privilege to serve on this body and see behind the scenes what so many fantastic Beloiters do. It's just such an honor to hear, and I'm humbled by a company of great residents. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. DeForest. I also would offer congratulations to all those involved in the BIF event this last weekend or a couple weekends ago. And, of course, congratulations to the This Old House Award and the good work that the neighborhood group does. Whether they get the award or not, they're doing the work. So we certainly appreciate that. I did have an opportunity, along with City Manager Arf, to participate in the Wisconsin League of Municipalities Lobby Day in Madison a couple of Wednesdays ago. We were there for a significant part of the day, trying to have contact with our legislators on various issues that involve the city. We had some success meeting with them. Also, along with Manager Arft and Finance Director York, I went to the Rock County Finance Committee meeting the other evening and received a recommendation by that committee for approval of our Recovery Economic Development Bonds, RES bonds, if you would. We're going to be acting on that a little bit later this evening, but the effort paid off last week when the full county board voted unanimously to approve Beloit's request to use $4.1 million of county authority to apply for these particular types of bonds, which feature a 45% rebate to the city of the borrowing costs. So, as I understand, that little effort saved our taxpayers in the tune of about $300,000, perhaps a little bit more, over the life of the bonds. So that was a good effort on everyone's part. Last week I also had the opportunity to participate in the Hometown Heroes Lunch over at the Angel Museum, as well as in the Merrill Community Center fundraising efforts. Again, lots of good work being done by lots of good people in our city. Moving along, number 10 was City Manager's presentation. There is none. Number 11 is reports from city boards and officers. We have a series of financial ones. Mr. York, I know we have to vote on them individually, but if you'd like, I don't imagine there's a problem with you describing them collectively, if you'd like to do it that way.
Be happy to. We do have several resolutions related to the upcoming bond issue. These are the general obligation bonds the city plans to issue this year for various capital improvements that are contained in our 2010 capital budget. The first initial resolution for $2.7 million are for street improvements that the city plans to make this year. Item B, the initial resolution in the amount of $735,000 are for some improvements in our downtown TIF district, TIF number 5. One of the projects actually was approved this evening that will be included in that funding. The item number C for $275,000 are for park improvements that are planned for this year. And the last initial resolution in the amount of $410,000 are for costs associated with our new police station that we're considering. That's essentially for engineering, architectural type expenses that are anticipated. The last item associated with the bonds is the resolution actually authorizing the collective borrowing of these 4 initial resolutions. The total GO borrowing for this year is $4,165,000. As Mr. Van de Bogart alluded to, the plan is at this point is to pursue the Recovery Zone Economic Development Bonds, which were made available through the stimulus program that the federal government approved last year. If this program will allow the city to save 45% of the interest expense associated with this debt, which as you indicated, is a significant savings to the city over the 20-year life of the bonds. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any specific questions you may have.
Can you give us a quick rundown, Mr. York, on the usual method for general obligation borrowing in a tax-exempt status versus this method we're using this time, and why and how? Just a quick primer for people who might not be as up on this as some others.
Typically, when the city issues general obligation debt, it is tax-exempt borrowing, which means that the investors, when they purchase that debt, they do not have to pay federal income tax on the interest that they receive from the city. The Recovery Zone Economic Development bonds are a little different in the fact that these are actually issued on a taxable basis. The investors that purchase this debt will actually have to pay income tax on the interest that we pay them. It carries a little bit higher interest rate as a result of that compared to the tax-exempt rates, but the city actually receives a 45% tax rebate from the federal government on the additional interest that we're paying as a result of issuing taxable debt. And that's the big difference between those two.
And our expectation is that that will result in a significantly lower figure than the normal method of tax exempting.
The projections are, yes, that when we look at what tax-exempt debt is currently being issued for as far as the interest expense compared to taxable debt of the same credit rating, we believe that there is a substantial savings available there for the city to issue the Recovery Zone Economic Development bonds. And as you indicated, the Rock County initially received the allocation actually from the state of Wisconsin. The federal government initially authorized the allocation to the state of Wisconsin, and they in turn allocated it out to the various localities, mainly the counties in the state. Rock County received $10,034,000 of the state's overall allocation. They plan to use a portion of that themselves, and the remainder they've allocated for us to use for this year. And that was approved last week at the county board meeting.
All right, thank you, Mr. York. Additional questions of Mr. York? Ms. Johns?
I just wanted to make a general comment that thank you for everything that you've done with this and all of the questions I've had that you've answered. I just wanted us to point out that this did not come easy. We don't just sign off on these bond sales like there's no thought to it. I have still, being new at this, sticker shock, especially with the economic times the way they are right now. So I just wanted to let it be known that I know you guys do a lot of work, and then you get badgered by us, but I wanted to thank you for that. So, thank you.
No problem.
Is it badgered or fox? I'm not sure.
Badger's the finance mascot.
Okay, all right. All right, Ms. Alexander, do we need a roll call vote on each of these?
Do not, just an individual vote on each item.
All right, thank you. All right, the first matter that we'll look at then would be 11A, initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $2,745,000. Is there a motion on the 11A?
Second.
Ms. Johns and Mr. Haynes. Counselor, questions or discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Well, motion carries 7-0. 11B is a initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $735,000. Is there a motion to approve 11B? Mr. Haynes, Ms. Johns. Counselor, questions or discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Well, motion carries 7-0. 11C is an initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $275,000. Is there a motion to approve 11C? Mr. Dench, Mr. Levy. Counselor, questions or discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well, motion carries 7-0. Item 11D is an initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds, excuse me, in an amount not to exceed $410,000. Is there a motion to approve 11D? Mr. Levy, Mr. Noonan. Councilor, questions or discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well, motion carries 7-0. And item 11E is a resolution authorizing the borrow of $4,165,000 and providing for the issuance and sale of general obligation corporate purpose bonds therefore. Is there a motion to approve 11E? Mr. Dench, Ms. Johns. Councilor, questions or discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well, motion carries 7-0. 11F is a resolution approving the termination of the West Side Bypass Study and request to reprogram $8 million for the Inman Park extension. Mr. Botts, can you give us the staff report on this item, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Before you is a resolution asking the states of Wisconsin and states of Illinois to terminate the study. Back in 1994, the states of Illinois and Wisconsin entered into an agreement to perform an environmental study to determine the feasibility of building a bypass around the west side of Beloit, which would eventually connect with the interstate at Rockland Road. They hired a consultant. Part of the agreement was that the state of Wisconsin was to pay a portion of those consulting costs. And the Illinois was the lead agency with this environmental study to build this bypass. Through the public hearings and discussions throughout the time of the study, it was determined that there was very little support for this project in Illinois, and there was some support in Wisconsin, but as it went on, there seemed to be more and more support against moving forward with the bypass. For a number of years, the bypass study said without any work being done on it, because the state of Illinois, basically their stance was that being that there was no effort or interest in doing this in Illinois, why would we continue with this? And it wasn't until probably a couple years ago, Illinois wanted to get paid for what they had paid their consultant for this portion of the study, and Wisconsin's requirement was that they would not make any payments to the state of Illinois until there was a completion of the study. So, to date, Illinois has not been paid for anything that the consultant has done on behalf of the state of Wisconsin for this project. In order for that to happen, we met a couple times to talk about this, and the conclusion was that there really wasn't a desire to continue on with this study. And one of the first steps, since this project was somewhat initiated by the city of Beloit, is that we would pass a resolution offering to end the study. And then that would be given to both the states, who would move forward with their portions of finalizing the contractual agreement between Wisconsin and Illinois, and Illinois finally getting paid for the work that the consultant had done to date. The study, the environmental document, has never been completed. There was a number of steps. Basically, because it's taken so long to do it, they'd have to start the study entirely all over again to meet the federal requirements for an environmental study of this type. So it was going to be really cost prohibitive to actually just complete the study to our needs. So with that, I'm offering that the City Council approve this resolution to terminate this study. Also with this, the state of Wisconsin, actually their TCP, this the Transportation Projects Commission, which is made up of a number of legislators, approves what they call major projects in the state, and this was a major project according to the state of Wisconsin, and they allocated $8 million to be set aside for their portion of the construction of this project. And so that just was there's never been any money pass hands anywhere. This is just a reservation they have in their budget document. And so we're encouraging the WSDOT to support our effort to try to get this funding reprogrammed in to use for our Inman Parkway extension on the north side of Beloit. We will have to solicit the Transportation Projects Commission to make that allocation, since it was their order that commissioned the money in the first place. So we'll be working with the DOT, and then we should be also working with our local legislators to encourage that the legislation side of this reauthorizes that $8 million to local use, because they give it to local use before, so why not give it back to us to use on a different project in the area? So with that, this resolution is ending the study, and then we'll also be encouraging the state of Wisconsin to support moving of this money.
Question, Mr. Botts, would be, when you say we're urging them to reallocate it, is it a city project, or I was told it was a county project, not a city project?
Well, it is. The county is the lead agent on the project. We initially got earmarked funds to support the design of the project, so we started out the idea working with the towns of Turtle and town of Beloit on our MPO to develop this project. And since the majority of that Inman Parkway project is in the county, they became the lead agent on that and are responsible now for the design of the project and eventually to the construction of the project.
So ours is a secondary role, encouraging the states to plug this money into their formulas, but we're not the moving agency.
Absolutely. We really have no money into this project at all, and we're encouraging that money to stay local instead of going somewhere else in the state.
Mr. Forrest?
I have several questions. First, if we could back up and just, I want to make sure that we've covered the ground in terms of termination of the West Side bypass. As far as that, and I wasn't obviously on the city council, then I was just watching and following the issue when it was in the public. And as far as I understood, that grew out of resident concerns. That residents came forward and said, we have this concern about truck traffic going through our residential neighborhoods. Have we done any inventory of truck traffic? If that still is an issue, have we contacted any of those original residents who brought this issue to the city council of our predecessors long ago to see if it's still an issue of any kind?
We haven't heard anything from any of the people who supported that original study to come forward. This has been before the MPO a number of times to keep it as a project and a long-term planning project, and there's been, all we've heard is opposition to the project from the local area. And there's even a website up that supports opposition to this with the West Side bypass. So there hasn't been any direct contact with people who may have been interested in creating this bypass in the first place.
Since I wasn't privy to that communication earlier, did that original commitment come in the form of petitions that were signed by residents? How was that support demonstrated, and how could we contact some of those individuals?
I don't remember, how the original project got started. We certainly have some records that probably would indicate that. There may have been a resolution passed by the city council that supported this idea of a west side bypass. That's probably one of the main reasons why we wanted to bring it back to council, but I didn't look and see if there was an original resolution supporting the project.
Okay, and then focusing on our encouragement in the shift, I wanted to check because that Inman Parkway extension would buff it up against agricultural land that's being actively used, and I'm concerned about preservation of agricultural land, and I'm just wondering about, could you explain the intention of the extension? Who's the beneficiary? What is the purpose of it? Do we see long-range plans for economic development along that corridor? Could you speak to that a little bit, please?
During some of our long-range transportation planning in the Beloit area through our MPO, we were looking at different ways to try to shift the traffic that passes through our residential communities. And we were in a discussion with the town of Turtle folks at the time, where we were voicing concerns about how people were accessing off the interstate, coming down Chaupier Road, cutting through the local neighborhoods to get over to the Prairie Avenue area. And so we were, looking for a way to try to add some relief to that. Inman Parkway right now currently just stops at Prairie, and there's always been a reservation to cross the river in lands that have been more or less reserved for that potential of extending the road over to Chaupier. So we officially mapped that route, went through a public process to do that, and then using that to identify, it would give transportation, more commercial industrial transportation over to the town of Beloit's industrial park is there. That commercial business district that's along Prairie Avenue, as well as construction traffic coming out of the Rock Roads pits that are north up by Town Line Road that currently come through the city to get out to the interstate when going south to do construction activities. And so it had a variety of reasons for putting let's call it I won't call it a bypass, but a connector route on the north side of town that would keep traffic out of the residential areas. I don't think it was ever intended to be a economic development driver per se. We're not planning on putting any public any public utilities in the area. It's just more of a transportation connector for that north side of town.
So just to make sure I understand, so the primary goal is to remove truck traffic from residential neighborhoods in the town of Turtle. Is that correct?
Not only truck traffic, there's construction traffic that goes through there, but just car traffic, just reduce the number of vehicles that will be driving through the residential areas there. Murphy Woods Road is a big one that was a cut through from Show Pier over to Prairie, and a number of residents along there were concerned about the speed. There'd be many times when the town of Turtle police force would sit out there and offer coupons for people who exceeded, and so they were quite diligent on wanting us to help support that project.
Don't forget Cranston Road. Every time Rock Road has a project somewhere to the south or east, our residents are on the phone day and night because the trucks are running up there at 6 o'clock in the morning. We have a lot of issues with heavy truck traffic in both the town of Turtle and the city of Beloit.
One of the big concerns we had, and we were voicing with the state of Wisconsin, is that when it comes to reconstruct the interstate on 43 and doing that work in there, Rock Roads being a major contractor in the area often produces asphalt and stone for those construction projects. And I don't know how many times you've noticed when you've seen asphalt trucks coming down Cranston Road, coming off of Prairie, Cranston Road, and out Milwaukee Road to the interstate. But it's quite often during the summer, and that route going up an Inman Parkway extension would greatly reduce their route. In fact, they've told us that they're in support of that project too, because it helps keep their trucks out of town, gets them to the construction activities faster than driving through local traffic. Those trucks don't like to mingle with cars either, and so we think it helps create a safer pathway through town.
Can I ask one more question related to process? Is this a time-sensitive manner or issue? I guess, honestly, I would like a little time to do some due diligence and try to contact some of the individuals that were involved in that original movement for the West Side bypass study. And do you feel like this is an issue we need to act on quickly for any particular reason?
There's no particular timeline other than the sooner we take our action, it kind of kicks off the states being able to go through their processes to in the study for their purposes of paying each other.
Thank you.
All right, any additional councilor questions or comments? Mr. Arf?
Yes, Mr. President, you had communication with the West Side resident that coordinated the initial effort to get this project.
I did speak with Vicki
You should
Gentoff.
speak to that tonight, because there were only a couple of people who were involved in the leadership of that group that are still with us. Most have passed on. And I think your comments about your conversation would be very helpful.
I did have contact with former council member Vicki Gentoff Johnson in reference to this item on our agenda. She indicated that there was nothing for it to connect to in Illinois, so it didn't make a whole lot of sense to leave it on the planning books. She had indicated that it was almost a quid pro quo with the bypass around Janesville, and that the funding and the applications went hand in hand with one another at that same time. And she was referring to the Highway 11 bypass around Janesville, and that it may have been involved somewhat in the Beloit-Janesville tug-of-war that's occurred over the years. But she didn't indicate to me anyway any opposition to or problem with the elimination of it at this time. So.
For the most part, it became a dead project when Illinois pulled out. Is that correct?
Right. nothing to connect it to. No.
We did talk with the state of Wisconsin about just, building a piece in Wisconsin and down to the state line, and really what we do, we'd curve it into Sherland Avenue. But then again, if we're trying to construct something that would act somewhat as a bypass, we're still running vehicles down through, basically coming down through the south end of downtown. And everybody knows how bad this corner is out here at State and Sherland Avenue. It have to be reconstructed to allow traffic to get through there easier, and it's pretty tight confined down there. So the state of Wisconsin, they listened to us, and they weren't in opposition of it, but they didn't think it was a very good idea because it really didn't serve the purpose as originally intended.
Mr. Dench?
Well, I would just add one other factor that came into play when the reason the state of Illinois dropped it was because of the tremendous amount of resistance that they encountered with residents in Winnebago County. It became nearly impossible to find a route that they could map for their portion of that bypass, which is, I think, the main reason that they just let the plan die. The people in Rockton Roscoe area, those residents would be affected tremendously against this.
All right, any additional comments or questions? All right, 11F is a resolution approving the termination of the West Side Bypass Study and a request to reprogram $8 million for the Inman Parkway extension. Is there a motion to approve 11F? Mr. Haynes and Mr. Levy. Additional counselor questions or comments? All right. All in favor signify by aye. 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 Those opposed? Very well, motion carries 7-0. 11G is a resolution approving the Rock County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. Mr. Botts, can you give us the staff report, please, sir?
In order for the Rock County to receive any FEMA funds for any type of disasters that happen in the area, they have to have a mitigation plan in place, which offers some suggestions on improvements to the Rock County area that may suffer from some sort of natural disaster or disaster of any kind, I guess. And this plan is being updated in order to meet the standards established by FEMA, and it does offer us, if things happen in the city of Beloit, like our flooding, we have the opportunity to apply for federal funding. We have to do it under the auspices of this hazard mitigation plan by Rock County. We can't go off on our own and ask for money. Well, we can, but they're going to say that it has to come through Rock County. And so it just pays for us to support this plan that's being updated by Rock County. And typically, Rock County will support on any type of activities we want to do things to mitigate any type of hazardous things that may happen in the city. So we try to use this as a planning tool also.
All right, questions of Mr. Botts? Ms. DeForest?
Mr. Botts, has the appropriate staff reviewed the plan and feel it's satisfactory? We've offered any feedback to the county about changes we'd like to see in the plan that might affect Beloit in any way?
The plan really didn't have a lot in it that were specific projects for the city of Beloit, since we did a pretty good job of managing the effort of the flooding. Primarily, this is being updated to meet the needs of the flooding activities that happen in Rock County. Rock County and Janesville suffered quite a bit, so they had a lot of specific projects in there. We really didn't have much other than fortifying the riverbanks, and so we identified those as potential projects for our area. So yes, we did review the plan and offered suggestions to it.
All right, thank you.
Additional counselor questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve 11G? Ms. Johns, Mr. Levy. Anything additional from counselors? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 11H is a resolution approving the naming of a park located at 540 Colby Street, the State Line Restoration Prairie. Mr. Bonds will give us the staff report in a moment. The Plan Commission made a recommendation for approval 4-1. And the Parks and Recreation and Conservation Advisory Committee also made a recommendation for approval. Mr. Bonds?
When this to, let's say, redevelop a piece of property into for public use, We had this opportunity with the former Bear site, and we needed to name it something, so we've been going through an exercise of trying to come up with a name for this facility. The council has been involved with that. The Parks Commission and Plan Commission have both been involved with this process, and the Parks Commission talked about this for some time and came up with an idea of a state line because the state line runs through it. It's restoring an old site, and the plan is to make it a prairie. So State Line Restoration Prairie is the name that they're recommending, and that went to the Plan Commission, and they voted in support of that, with one of their Plan Commissioners having an objection to a generic name. And so it's before the City Council to consider naming that facility the State Line Restoration Prairie.
All right, thank you, Mr. Motz. Councilor, questions or comments with Mr. Motz? Is there a motion to approve 11H? Mr. Dench and Mr. Noonan. Additional councilor questions or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well, motion carries 7-0. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Mr. Levy, Ms. DeForest, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Very well, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Aye.